Continuing coverage of the upcoming election in the Philippines, the historical election continues right here on Hotspot, and Nestor Licanto is in country, of course, covering this for us. He's been doing so all week. Nestor, half a day once again.
Half a day, Jason. Yeah, look, just to give you the latest, it's been a whirlwind of campaign activity as they wind down to the final days. Friday, of course, by law, is the last day for campaigning. And so we have, for example, the front runner, Bongbong Marcos, was in Iloilo last night campaigning with his running mate, Sara Duterte. Iloilo would be familiar to a lot of the agate residents of Guam because a lot of their ancestors came from the Iloilo province in the central Philippines. So he's expected to go to Davao today or tomorrow, and that is in the southern Philippines, which is the Duterte stronghold. And he'll wrap up coming back here to Manila in Parañaque City. Likewise, the second highest vote getter in the polls is Leni Robredo, the vice president. She is also in the central Philippines last night, urging her supporters not to give up, even despite the huge lead that Marcos apparently has over her. But she's also expected to wrap up by coming back here to Metro Manila on Friday. And also the Commission on Elections put out a notice yesterday that by law that campaign signs and paraphernalia are not allowed or prohibited within view of all the polling places. So they put out that reminder yesterday.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because can Bongbong Marcos's considerable lead, you know, as you detailed in the polls yesterday, can it be encapsulated down into one reason, or is it several reasons that he's enjoying such support, and where does that support come from?
Well, there was a very excellent Time magazine article that's been widely circulated that kind of narrows down his the reason for his popularity. And it was a little surprising to me because he is most popular. Most of his support is coming from those under the age of 30 who were not alive when his father, was in power. And they pointed out the fact that he has and his campaign have utilized social media very effectively. As you probably know, social media is huge here in the Philippines. Yep. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, what have you, is huge. And so they have used that very effectively. And also he is staying above the fray, so to speak. You know, a lot of his rivals are trying to pin him down on his family's reputation of corruption and ill-gotten wealth and those sorts of issues. And he's so far refused to really address that. And his theme for his campaign is one of unity and pulling the people out of the economic doldrums and into prosperity, you know, as a country. And that seems to have resonated with the young folks, because even anecdotally, just talking to them as I go around, their support is similar. 6 or 7 out of 10 will say they support Bongbong Marcos because they believe that he can his message of unity and prosperity really resonates with them.
Now, and speaking of anecdotes, real quick, I know one of your proudest moments as a journalist, and even when you're doing this maybe like 3 decades ago as a young reporter, was you actually got to interview Ferdinand Marcos Sr. So what are some of your memories about that?
Yeah, this was back in 1987. The former owners of KOAM also owned a news radio station in Honolulu. And they were trying to get him an interview with the late Ferdinand Marcos on the first-year anniversary of his exile, because he was exiled and went to Honolulu. And so they couldn't get it. So they called Guam and said, hey, maybe that young reporter we hired, he's Filipino, maybe he can get the interview. So they gave me the contact numbers for his press corps. And long story short, I did get the interview, had an opportunity to interview President Marcos. He was clearly in poor health. I believe he was on dialysis at the time. And you can tell from his face, it was a little swollen. That's the effect of prednisone, I believe. And so, but he was still very lucid. And he's to be frank, he is a very brilliant man, and he would answer questions that I asked, but always go back to what had happened in 1986 with the People Power Revolution that ousted him. And one of the things that stuck out to me was that one of the things that he blamed was the U.S. government that had kind of pushed him to leave. And in fact, they provided the planes for him and his family and whatever possessions and to take him to Honolulu. And that entourage actually stopped at Anderson Air Force base on their way to Honolulu, and I remember that as
Mhm.
well. But yeah, that as you said, that was probably one of the most memorable interviews that I've ever done in my career.
I want to say I think I remember writing about that. I was in middle school, but when the plane stopped at Anderson Air Force Base. But yeah, it's many interesting memories, and certainly many more memories to be made as the historic election of the Philippines is just a few days away. So Nestor Licanto in Manila, continuing his coverage of the Philippine election. Ness, thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Jason.
All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. And please stay tuned, everybody, because the hotspot will continue right after these messages.